You know, for me, that music, that felt so good, you know, and the way he blew over those kind of things that he set up, it was just great music, and you know, his sound, his feel, his rhythm, and it was exciting. You know, it was exciting to be in the band, you know, to be with Miles, and to be part of that.
Did he give you a lot of room to move,
Yeah,
chances to
yeah,
express
yeah.
yourself?
You know, look, he was the boss, and you know, sometimes on your solo, you'd be playing, and all of a sudden he'd cut you off. You know, that he did do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I mean, he understood jazz so well, you know, that he wouldn't really do something that he wanted you to create. He wanted that, you know. Well, you know, it was us and him. We all hung out together. We talked about Miles all the time. Miles kind of stayed by himself. And then when he wanted to hang out with one or whoever, he would call up, or have his valet, really, call up and say, Miles wants you to come hang out with him, you know. And it was fun, you know, and then he would want to talk about the music or just, you know, bullshit around or whatever. But it was really us together in this Miles Davis world, and we were just having fun being there. And we got to be really good friends, you know, all the guys in the band. Oh, that's the big question. Where is jazz going in the future? I wish I could. If I knew, then I could do it, and I'd be the first one. No, I don't know. But I think evolve is the key word. The jazz has to evolve, and it's a natural thing, you know. I mean, we all put our minds to work and try and think of something new. But in the end, the music has to be natural. That's when we heard Miles just then. That was so natural, that music, you know. It was really this kind of jazz rock. You know, it was a really natural thing for Miles to take his jazz, you know, he's a jazz era person, and put it over these funky beats and have electric bass and everything. And a lot of people, you know, have tried to do that in an intellectual way. But Miles picked a way to do it that felt good, you know, and that's a natural evolution. So it's an intellectual pursuit, music, you know, and we try and think of all these things. But I really think in the end, you end up deciding on what to write, what to play, and what's going to be successful from feeling, you know. So it has to evolve, and you push the boundaries because you're looking for stuff that feels good, because it doesn't feel good to do the same old thing, you know. It feels good to do something new. Ornette was a huge influence on me. I'm going to contradict myself, you know, conceptually as well as musically, because it seems to me that he just decided that you could play jazz without having chord sequences and without having one key, and that you could all just listen to each other, and you could also be in 4 different places at the same time, and it was still music. And this is a conceptual thing that kind of, you know, comes also from avant-garde music of the 20th century, but he actually did it, you know, and he made it happen and made it natural for him. And the music he made with Charlie Hayden and Eddie Blackwell and Billy Higgins, you know, and Don Cherry, this to me is, you know, it was always some great stuff, and changed all of us, you know, because we all tried to play like that and learned so much, and then brought that back to other forms of music, you know, and influenced everybody. And I think in the end, Ornette's compositions, without those, you know, I mean, he's one of the great writers in jazz. You know, we need good tunes, you know, and he did it. He wrote beautiful songs, does write beautiful songs. Now, Gary Burton. Now, this is a good question, because he's really one of my favorites. And he was my first really big musical influence of jazz, a really great jazz musician who I met and got to play with in the early 70s. When he came to Boston to teach at Berkeley, his first year, I was there as a student, and he came and he sort of adopted me and a bass player and a drummer. They all roomed together, Ted Siebes, the drummer, and Chip Jackson, the bass player. And every day, he would come hang out at our apartment, which is across the street from Berkeley, and jam with us. every day, and I didn't know how to play. And I don't know if the other guys, I think they were a little bit further along than I was. And we just played through tunes and then would sit around and talk with Gary about jazz. And I was a huge fan of the Gary Burton Quartet, his albums on RCA. That's what some of the stuff that got me into jazz. And he always had great guitar players, and it was that music that he made in the 60s, right before I met him, is really important music. And the stuff that he played with Steve Swallow, and the music that Steve wrote for Gary, and the way Gary played it, the way Gary played Carl Bley's music, and Keith Jarrett and did it his own way, and brought this other aspect to jazz, you know, a folkloric, classical, and sometimes rock elements, and it was really new and special at the time. And I think it's been overlooked a little bit, you know, in jazz history, because it's beautiful stuff. And so he was a huge influence on me, and a great artist. You know, to me, it was always that as a jazz fan, listening to all the different instrumentalists, you know, everybody had their sound, you know, and as we know, it's a key element in being a jazz musician. And I understood that, you know, intellectually when I started to play the guitar, and I would think, God, I want to be a jazz guy. Well, I got to have my own sound. What's that going to be? I tried to copy all my idols, you know, and it never worked out. I was always frustrated. I'd spend days and days like, I'm going to learn, I'm going to be this guy. I'm going to be Pat Martino. I'm going to be Jim Hall. I'm going to be Wes Montgomery. And then when I got to play with other people, that all went out the window. You know, I could try to be like them for about 15 seconds, and after that, I couldn't do it anymore.
Right.
So I was left with me. And I think I did realize that I had no choice but to, you know, do my own thing. I would like to see myself busy in jazz and playing playing with really good musicians like I'm doing now, and writing music, hopefully writing some stuff that is focused, get a little better at that, playing the guitar, expanding my guitar vocabulary and sonic vocabulary some, and you know, it's such a joy to get to play music, and I'm having more fun than I ever had playing, you know. I'm just, it's really a treat to get to play for people and to get to play with great musicians and to come together. And I'm not taking that for granted anymore. You know, I've been in some great situations, and I think I was maybe, you know, thinking a little too much of myself, and then all of a sudden the night would be over, and I'd say, wow, I could have actually gotten more out of that. And I'm not letting that slide anymore. So I'm just looking forward to keeping going.